technology and visual aids, shall we say. And in order to give him time to set up, I will talk very slow. And that will give him time. So Tim is going to be presenting a 45 to 50-minute presentation, not tonight, at Allstate in order to help them set up a new Toastmasters club. Tim has been presenting to our club segments of that presentation as he tests out the content, the delivery, and the audience reaction. Tonight, Tim will be giving us part of your communication connection, but he's giving it to us with a twist of the line. Let's welcome Tim.
Off the cuff is very important. And as you saw before, off the cuff is something simple you can do. But the thing is, the example before was more about a situation in which you'd have a recurring problem. Off the cuff really works best if you've got a problem that happens once. You deal with it. If you've got a recurring problem, you're really talking about feedback. Now, there's a problem with feedback. And the problem is that there are 3 steps to feedback, and people tend to leave out the 3rd step. But before getting to that, first, a little bit about what feedback is. This isn't something I picked up myself. I kind of learned with the help of my Toastmaster friends, buddies, mentors, business mentors, kind of helped me putting the thing together. And this is the most important thing to realize about feedback. Feedback is a test. Feedback is a test. And if you think of feedback that way, it makes it a lot simpler. Because what do you do when you have a test? What does a teacher do before you can even do anything with a test? What do they have to do? Before that?
Write
it. Make the test. Right? You have to make the test. The first thing you have to do. And so when you're getting feedback, the first thing that's important to do is identify the problem. Now, have you ever had this happen in a meeting before where people start talking about the problem, and somebody talks about a problem over here, and oh, that's a little problem. Oh, yeah, I've got the same problem here, and I've got the same problem, I've got the same problem. And as you start listening to it, you realize they're all talking about different problems. You know what I'm talking about, at least?
Very recently.
Very recently, okay. Later on we'll have a discussion session. You can contribute to that, share more about that. Exactly. But if you think about it as a test, it's really simple. How can you possibly do anything in a test until somebody makes the test? Does that make sense? So the problem, people think of problem, okay, problem, but if you think of make the test, it makes it a lot simpler. When you make the test, you create that problem. You say, okay, here's the problem. Okay, well, maybe it's this, maybe it's that, fine, but we all agree, right? We're all agreeing this is the problem. All right, that's what we're going to test. That's what we're going to test. But there's a little bit of a catch. If the feedback session's with somebody who you report to, and they've got a problem with you, let them make the test. Let them make the test. So in that situation, you simply say, tell me a little bit more exactly about what this problem is. So that's the first step of feedback. Make the test. Deal with the problem. Now, if you cast your mind back to high school, back to college, back to graduate school, however far you got, once somebody made a test, what did you do?
Took the test.
Take the test. Thank you. Exactly. With lucky guesses, right? Good job. Take the test. How simple is that? So here's, make the test with the problem, and then you take the test. That's the solution. That's the solution part. And the solution part is really important. Now again, how many times in the situation of meeting, perhaps you can contribute at least, where you have people saying, well, here's a great solution over here. It's, yeah, it's a really great solution. Here's another solution we got to work on. And yet people start talking about solutions, and suddenly you realize it's nothing to do with the problem that was just established. Completely different solution for some other problem. Do you have that happen? That one too. Definitely be a good contributor. Exactly. So you take the test. It's all about getting the right solution. That's really important. Now, when you think of this problem and solution, people tend to stop there. They say, well, wait a minute, Tim, I got a problem. Okay, we talked about it, we got a solution, we're done, right? Well, if you think of this problem solution, that makes sense. But if you think in terms of taking a test, it makes no sense. Once you make the test, once you take the test, is that it? You ever just finish a test and think, oh, well, I'm done, I'm going home, that's it, good times, no problem. What comes after you take the test?
Worrying about it.
Worrying about it because you're worrying about your
Performance.
your performance, your grade, thank you. Now you grade the test.
Yeah, I read it.
Once you make the test with the problem, then you take the test with solution, then you have to grade the test. And that's simply follow-up. Following up afterwards to make sure everything happened right. So all you do is you go back and say, well, okay, let's meet later and find out if this solution actually fixed the problem. Let's find out the solution fixed the problem. So once you do that, then you're in a situation that you grade the test and you've got your solution. You're ready to go. Now maybe you're thinking, Tim, wait a minute, a little abstract here. Let's get some details here. Okay, if you think back all the way back to the beginning of the speech you did not hear, there's a guy called Ted, which you've never heard about before either.
I've heard about
Ken has heard about him a little bit too much. Got any questions about Ted? Ken can tell you about him. But anyway, one day, I'm a professional secretary. Ted came to me and said, Tim, why aren't you booking my hotels? Now you might think it's a pretty straightforward question, Tim. I mean, why aren't you booking the hotels? But really, what does he mean by that? What's really the problem here? So I want Ted to make the test for me. So I say, okay, Ted, tell me in your own words to get the right solution for this, exactly what the problem is with booking the hotels. And maybe Ted says, Tim, the problem is you're booking hotels, but the alternate hotels you're booking instead of the ones I want, none of those work for me. Well, that's good, because now I know about a possible solution. So then when I take the test, I start using off the cuff, which you would have just learned, about first thought, next thought, and first thought, next thought, and new thought. And I'd say, okay, well, my first thought is, if you're going to go through, you've got a problem with the hotels, and you got a problem with booking the hotels, why don't you just simply give me a list of all the hotels you want, every hotel you want, and I'll just go through, and once I find a hotel available, I'll just check that off, and you'll stay at that hotel. It's that simple. Would that work for you? Thinks about it, yeah, Tim, that'd work. I've got a listing of all the hotels, and I'll check it off, and that's the hotel we use instead. I said, great. So you send me a listing of all the hotels you want in the order you want them, and at the end, I'll just go all the way down the list, check them all. That's a solution, taking the test. Then comes the final step of grading the test. Need to grade the test. So, okay. So what happens is, so Ted, so what later on, what's going to happen is that I'm going to put a time in your calendar, so later on we can follow up and figure out, did this actually solve the problem? Are you getting the hotels you need now? Or is there some new problem that came up we hadn't thought about? Just grade the test. Figure out. If there's a new problem, got to solve it. If it's an old problem, got to find a different solution. And just keep on doing it. Does that make sense? So you make the test with a problem, you take the test with a solution, you grade the test with follow-up. That's all feedback is. But amazingly, feedback can go incredibly wrong. And Elise at least has stories about feedback going wrong. She can't think of any if you can contribute. But right now, get together with your friends, your neighbors soon to be your friends. Talk about some of those feedback horror stories you've had. And then later on, you'll share them with the group with the names changed to protect the innocent, or maybe the guilty. Just take about a minute to do that.
Oh, I know. Have you ever gotten your answer? No, because I thought Chris was not at work on Sunday. And the people.
Oh no, he wasn't playing. He didn't do this. Oh yeah, left. Right. Yeah, we never got our answer, but we got it now. So
you come back?
yeah. So he got a funeral this weekend, so we'll be back.
really good to speak out and had an opinion about something. But this was sprung on us, and I didn't like that.
Did you go look at the hole in the wall?
Completely open. I have to go. I told Reese, and so I can go look at it to what they were telling me because I was.
See, and that was my problem.
State.
I needed this person to start back at work.
I don't really.
No, April.
Do I
But
have to really?
the problem is he put him on the schedule and we hadn't got the okay for him to come back. So I was waiting for them to say okay.
No, basically what they said was.
So I said, well, you need to take him off the schedule. Until we get the okay.
I guess
Like
I
the year and say,
think.
Might let him start back. So we finally got it. So April's happy now. Put him on the
And
schedule
so
for
the
next
fact
year.
that they sprung it on us,
And that's how no problem.
and the fact that it was everybody, regardless of how much attention they had paid to could speak up.
Somehow last week he didn't think that that was
You
the
know what I
problem. By
mean?
getting
Because I
people.
was like, I had no idea that I was supposed to listen to this.
Clap once if you can hear me. Clap once if you can hear me. One more time. Thank you. Ken doesn't have to do it because he hates when I do that. But if you ever have a group where you're trying to quiet them down, that usually works very well. All right. Examples. Anybody? Go ahead. What do you do?
I really like the example that he
Yes.
provided,
Yes.
where he said it was there was an issue where he went to the dentist, and actually the dentist that he got to, him and his father actually both went to the same dentist.
Okay.
And I want to say, hopefully I'm saying the story right, but basically what happened was the dentist was planning the procedures based upon his father's chart instead of his. But they didn't actually do anything.
Yeah, it don't look like a jack-o'-lantern.
So,
Yeah.
so that was kind of the problem about taking the test with the wrong problem really being involved there, right?
Correct.
Got some great solutions, but wrong mouth. Interesting. Pat, yes. Tell
Well,
me what we did.
I just started grad school about a quarter ago. I'm almost to the end of my first quarter. God, it's been really fun, but it's like, okay, I made it. Okay, so it's on transformational leadership, and to make a long story short, there's about 14 students in the class. So we have this getaway weekend where you go for 2 days and you study all together with the masters and PhD students in a nice camp-like environment in the woods, right? So we've been doing 3 papers a week for this course, okay? So we've been pumping these papers out and posting them online. There's a discussion group and everybody can say what they want in response to what you do. Okay, so what they decide to do is give us feedback as a group, each person, individually, without telling us. Okay, so there's 14 of us. There's the people who've graded the papers, and then everybody else, not only the graders that graded you, but everybody else in the group, they asked for their input. And my reaction was, hey, I'm getting A's and B's. I don't really want to hear this. I mean, that was my head thing. It's like, don't bother me, you know. I'm a writer, and, you know, that's what I do.
And
So it's like, I'm fine, really.
Exactly. Just to follow up on that is that's really going to get the situation when you grade the test. You can stop there. If everything's going okay, you can just stop right there. And some people do that. They grade the test. Well, let's look at the problem one more time. No. You've seen the problem enough. They graded the test. Everything's good.
Well,
Elise?
the thing that I wanted to mention
Yeah.
was, if they hadn't sprung it on me,
Uh-huh.
I was like, I couldn't hear.
Exactly. It was unfair.
Yeah,
It was
I
not
felt
the
like-
right thing to do. Definitely. Elise, did you have anything you wanted to share?
We're debuting a new program at work, and the other day I got together with the stakeholders to share the training that I had developed on that program. All of the outlines of the program have already been set, they've already been communicated, etc. So the training is purely just how we're going to present this information. And of course, after the training, we had about 15 minutes for feedback, and that 15 minutes was spent, instead of giving me feedback on how the training went and how the presentation was, debating the intricacies of the program, up to and including, should your greeting when you call in include the company name or not?
Oh, interesting. And that, again, that has to do with the problem really taking the test. And taking the test, but the wrong test. I want to make sure you get something said, Louisa, because you were so eager
Well,
at the beginning.
years ago, when I was getting one of my first feedbacks from the vice president and my evaluation, the performance was glowing. You walk on water, everything is perfect. We are
Amy knows
not,
about that.
we forget it. Everything was out of the way. And then my salary increase was
Nothing.
and I politely asked why. And the answer was, you're really being very highly paid. I didn't say anything, I should have, but I was just in my second year after graduate school.
Right.
I bust my
Mm-hmm.
It's unfair.
working
Yeah.
and had other offers, but I got this offer based on a whole economic package
Yeah.
to perform really well above everybody else in the
Yeah.
department, and then to get it's because I already was highly paid.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely unfair. It's the same sort of thing as Pettis. It's one of those unfair situations. And it's like grade the test and saying, I don't like the grade you gave me on this stupid test. Let's figure it out. I did a great job solving the problem. You did a great
The
job.
compensation didn't
And
match.
it's just unfair. No question. And you had a lot of other things I'm sure you're talking about. The big thing is, of course, feedback's a challenge. Feedback's a huge challenge in business. And you might be wondering, Tim, what the heck does it have to do with Toastmasters anyway? I mean, I get that the feedback is a challenge, but why does it have to do anything to do with Toastmasters? And here's the thing, is the feedback process is very similar to the things you learn in Toastmasters. First thing you learn in Toastmasters about, that you need to hear, but they will hear, about is that your first reaction to being nervous is you're freezing or flight or fighting. None of which is good for problem solving. You can't really freeze up when you see the problem, you can't run away from the problem, you certainly can't fight it every step of the way. So as you open up the problem, you get better at handling that part of making the test. Then in taking the test, that's off the cuff, that's table topics. We didn't do that today, but normally Toastmasters has table topics. And table topics, simply somebody asks a question you never heard about before, you answer the question, well that's your first thought, your next thought, and then your new thought. And in that process is where I get solutions out of it. Solutions that relate back to the problem. And the better first thought you get, the better solutions you get. And then finally, when you actually grade the test, that part is really about recurring meetings, about going back, making sure you double check, making sure you follow up on things, and making sure they get done. Toastmasters has recurring meetings. So as you go through the Toastmasters process, you go through the making the test, taking the test, and grading the test in your feedback section. You can continue to apply the Toastmaster skills to a feedback situation. All right, now we're just about ready to wrap things up. That's it for feedback. So, just to wrap things up, that'll be next time. Okay.